The Forgotten Fleet. The Arcturus shipyard sprawled across the emptiness of space like a graveyard of broken dreams. Hundreds of battle-scarred vessels floated in silent formation, their hulls bearing the scars of conflicts long past. Some were missing entire sections. Others had deactivated weapons systems that would never fire again. This was what remained of humanity's third fleet, once the pride of the United Space Command, now a collection of forgotten relics. Admiral Helena Reyes stood at the viewport of the command station, her weathered face illuminated by the distant glow of Arcturus Prime. At 53, with silver streaks highlighting her black hair and eyes that had seen too many battles, she wasn't supposed to end up here. After 27 years of distinguished service, this assignment was a polite way of pushing her toward retirement. Admiral, the U.S. Nova has arrived with the remaining personnel, Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported, standing at attention behind her. Thank you, Commander. Helena didn't turn from the viewport. How many? 317, ma'am. Mostly engineering specialists and tactical officers who've fallen out of favor with high command. A bitter smile crossed Helena's lips. The rejects and the rebels. Perfect companions for outdated starships. The United Space Command had made their expectations perfectly clear when they assigned her here 3 months ago. Maintain the vessels until they could be properly decommissioned. No resources for repairs, minimal crew, and absolutely no combat deployments. The Arcturus Preservation Fleet, or the Scrap Fleet, as it was mockingly called, was a bureaucratic footnote, nothing more. Ma'am, Jackson hesitated. The engineers have completed their initial survey of the fleet. And it's worse than we thought. Only 32 vessels could be made operational with our current resources. The rest would require shipyard facilities we don't have access to. Helena finally turned from the window, her jaw set with determination. Then we start with 32. Have Commander Chen prepare detailed reports on each viable vessel. I want to know everything. Structural integrity, weapons capabilities, engine efficiency, everything. Admiral, Jackson looked uncomfortable. High Command expects quarterly updates on decommissioning progress. Not. I'm aware of what High Command expects, Commander, Helena interrupted sharply. But those expectations will have to wait. We're going to do something with this fleet that no one expects. The command center of the U.S. Relentless hummed with activity. Though technically Helena's flagship, the heavy cruiser had seen better days. Hastily patched hull breaches and jury-rigged systems were everywhere. But the ship had good bones. It had fought in 3 major campaigns during the Centauri conflict and survived. That counted for something. Admiral, you need to see this, Commander Chen called from the science station. The stocky engineer had been with Helena for over a decade, following her from assignment to assignment. His loyalty had cost him promotions, but he'd never complained. Helena joined him at the station where a holographic display showed schematics of an unknown device. What am I looking at, Chen? We found it in the cargo hold of the Defiant. It's not in any of our databases, but preliminary analysis suggests it's not human in origin. Helena studied the strange, asymmetrical device with growing interest. Alien tech. Here, the Defiant was part of the exploratory group that ventured beyond the Perseus Veil last year. They must have picked it up before the mission was recalled, and conveniently forgot to report it. Helena mused. Any idea what it does? Chen shook his head. Not yet, but its energy signature is unusual. It seems to interact with gravitational fields in ways I've never seen before. I want a full research team on this. Priority 1, Helena ordered. And keep it quiet. The last thing we need is High Command swooping in to confiscate our discovery. Yes, Admiral. Chen nodded, already moving toward the exit. Commander, Helena called after him. Select personnel with creative thinking and unorthodox backgrounds. We need people who see possibilities, not limitations. As Chen departed, Helena returned to the central holographic display, showing the 32 vessels they'd managed to restore to minimal operational capacity. They were a motley assortment: cruisers with outdated weapon systems, destroyers with patched hulls, and support vessels that had been stripped of their most valuable components before being sent to Arcturus. "Not exactly the fleet of anyone's dreams," she muttered. "No, ma'am," Lieutenant Commander Jackson agreed, "but they're ours." 2 months later, Helena stood on the bridge of the Relentless as it led a formation of 12 ships through the asteroid field at the edge of the Arcturus system. The mysterious alien device, now referred to as the gravity lens, had proven to be more valuable than anyone could have imagined. "Status report," Helena ordered, watching as the ships maneuvered with surprising agility through the dense field. "All vessels maintaining formation," Jackson reported. "Gravity lens modifications are functioning within expected parameters. Energy consumption is 30% lower than projections." Chen had discovered that the alien device could manipulate gravitational fields with incredible precision. When integrated with human propulsion systems, it allowed for unprecedented efficiency and maneuverability. What had once been lumbering battle cruisers now moved with the grace of vessels half their size. "Excellent," Helena nodded. "Begin combat exercise Alpha 7. The fleet split into 3 groups, executing a complicated series of maneuvers that would have been impossible before the modifications. Helena watched with growing satisfaction as her ships danced through space, their movements synchronized and purposeful. "The Artemis reports weapon systems are online and targeting solutions are locked," Communications Officer Rivera announced. "Weapons are live but safety's engaged," Helena ordered. "Let's see what these old birds can do." The ships unleashed a barrage of simulated fire, their targeting systems enhanced by the gravity lens technology. The device didn't just improve propulsion. It allowed for more precise weapons targeting by compensating for gravitational distortions in space. 98% accuracy, Jackson reported, unable to keep the amazement from his voice. "That's better than the newest ships in the First Fleet." A rare smile crossed Helena's face. "Not bad for a bunch of outdated relics." The celebration was short-lived. The communications console erupted with an urgent signal, and Rivera's expression darkened as she listened to the incoming message. "Admiral," she said, turning to Helena, "we're receiving a distress call from the mining outpost on Arcturus IV. They're under attack." "By whom?" "The Crack's Dominion, Mom. 3 warships. They've already disabled the outpost's defensive systems." Silence fell over the bridge. The Cracks were a notoriously aggressive species that had emerged from the far reaches of the galaxy 5 years ago. Their raids on outlying human colonies had been increasing in frequency and brutality. "How long until reinforcements from Central Command can arrive?" Helena asked, already knowing the answer. "The nearest response fleet is at least 6 hours away," Jackson confirmed. Helena stared at the tactical display, weighing her options. Her orders were explicit. The Arcturus Preservation Fleet was not to engage in combat operations under any circumstances. The ships were considered too valuable as historical artifacts to risk in battle. But the mining outpost housed over 5,000 civilians. "Signal the fleet," Helena decided. "We're moving to intercept." "Ma'am." Jackson looked concerned. "High Command specifically ordered." "I'm aware of my orders, Commander." Helena's voice was steel. "But I'm also aware of our duty. We will not stand by while civilians are slaughtered. Now signal the fleet." As the ships altered course toward Arcturus IV, Helena pulled up everything they had on Crack's warships. The data was limited. The aliens guarded their technology jealously, but certain patterns were clear. Their vessels were heavily armored and carried powerful forward-facing weapons arrays. They preferred direct assaults, relying on overwhelming firepower rather than tactical finesse. "They outgun us," Chen observed from his station. "In a conventional fight, yes," Helena agreed. "So we won't give them a conventional fight." The bridge crew gathered around as Helena outlined her strategy. It was risky, unconventional, and violated at least a dozen fleet tactical protocols. It was also their only chance. Arcturus IV loomed large in the view screen, as the Relentless led the fleet toward the besieged mining outpost. 3 Crack's warships hovered near the main facility, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. They had already reduced the outpost's defensive installations to smoking ruins and were methodically destroying the habitat modules. "They'd spotted us," Jackson reported. "Crack's vessels are breaking off their attack and moving to intercept." Helena nodded, unsurprised. "Maintain course. All ships activate gravity lens systems." The modified propulsion systems hummed to life across the fleet, creating localized gravitational distortions that would confuse the Crack's targeting systems. "Enemy vessels opening fire," Rivera announced. The space between the fleets lit up with energy weapons and projectiles. Most missed their marks, the trajectories thrown off by the gravitational anomalies generated by the human ships. "Now," Helena ordered, "execute Maneuver Delta." The human fleet suddenly scattered in what appeared to be a panicked retreat. The Cracks, sensing weakness, pursued eagerly, their formation breaking as each ship chased what it perceived as easy prey. "They've taken the bait," Jackson confirmed. "All enemy vessels have separated." "Deploy sensor buoys," Helena commanded. "Activate Phase 2. Small devices ejected from the human ships, spreading throughout the battlefield. Each contained a miniaturized version of the gravity lens, programmed to create specific gravitational patterns. "Buoys active," Chen reported. "Gravitational matrix forming." On the tactical display, an intricate web of gravitational distortions appeared, encircling the Crack's vessels. The alien ships suddenly struggled to maintain their courses, pulled in multiple directions by competing gravitational forces. "All vessels, attack pattern Omega," Helena ordered. "Target their propulsion systems." The human fleet regrouped with startling speed, their ships moving through the gravitational web with practiced precision. They had trained for this, spending weeks learning to navigate the artificial gravitational landscape created by the alien technology. The Cracks had no such advantage. The first Crack's vessel fell quickly, its engines crippled by precise fire from 3 human destroyers. The second managed to destroy one of Helena's ships before succumbing to a coordinated assault from the Relentless and its support craft. The third and largest Crack's warship realized the trap too late. It attempted to retreat, firing wildly as it fought against the gravitational distortions. "They're trying to send a transmission," Rivera reported. "Long range, encrypted." "Jam it," Helena ordered immediately. "They're calling for reinforcements." The communications team worked frantically to block the signal, but they weren't fast enough. A partial transmission escaped before they could completely sever the link. "Admiral," Jackson's voice was grim as he studied the long-range sensors, "we're picking up multiple Crack signatures entering the system. Initial count suggests at least 12 vessels, including what appears to be a dreadnought class." Helena felt the weight of every eye on the bridge turned toward her. Their victory against 3 Crack ships had been hard-fought. 12 would be impossible, especially with a dreadnought leading the charge. "Time to arrival?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. 20 minutes, perhaps less." Helena stared at the tactical display, watching as the final Crack's warship from the initial group succumbed to the combined fire of her fleet. They had saved the mining outpost, but at what cost? Now they faced an enemy force that could wipe them out completely. "Signal all ships," she said finally. "Prepare for emergency jump to coordinates Echo 9. We need to regroup and—" "Ma'am," Rivera interrupted, her fingers pressed to her earpiece. "The outpost is hailing us. They say they have something that might help. Something about an abandoned Crack shuttle in their secondary hangar bay." Helena's eyes narrowed. "Put them through." As the face of the mining outpost director appeared on screen, Helena felt the first stirrings of what might have been hope. Sometimes the universe offered second chances, even to a forgotten fleet and its castaway commander. "Director Kazan," she acknowledged, "I understand you have something that might interest us." The middle-aged man nodded eagerly. "Admiral, 3 months ago, we captured an intact Crack shuttle during a failed raid. My engineers have been studying it ever since. We think we've deciphered their communication protocols." Helena leaned forward. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" "Yes, Admiral," Kazan confirmed. "With your gravity lens technology and our understanding of Crack's communications, you might be able to turn their own fleet against them." For the first time since taking command of the Arcturus Preservation Fleet, Helena Reyes smiled genuinely. "Director, I believe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Behind her, the tactical display blinked ominously as the Crack's reinforcements drew ever closer. Rising from the ashes, the command center of the mining outpost had been hastily converted into a makeshift tactical operations base. Engineers from both the outpost and Helena's fleet worked frantically, connecting the captured Crack's shuttle's communication systems to a modified gravity lens device. "This is insanity," Commander Jackson muttered, watching the proceedings with obvious skepticism. "Even if we can tap into their communication network, what exactly is our plan?" Helena studied the tactical display where 12 red dots, the incoming Crack's fleet, moved steadily toward their position. "Confusion is a powerful weapon, Commander. We don't need to defeat their entire fleet. We just need to disrupt their coordination long enough for us to strike decisively." Dr. Eliza Kwan, the outpost's chief engineer, approached with a datapad. Her face was streaked with grease, and her eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep, but there was unmistakable excitement in her expression. "We've got it, Admiral," she announced. "The Cracks use gravitational distortions for faster-than-light communications, similar in principle to your gravity lens technology. By synchronizing the frequencies, we can intercept and even transmit on their secure channels." "And they won't detect the intrusion?" Helena asked. Kwan shook her head. "Not immediately. Their system authenticates based on gravitational harmonics, which we can now replicate. It won't fool them forever, but it should give us a window of opportunity." Helena nodded, turning to Chen. "Have all ships incorporate these modifications immediately. I want every vessel capable of both receiving and transmitting on Crack's frequencies within 15 minutes. "Yes, Admiral," Chen responded, already moving to implement the orders. "What exactly are you planning?" Jackson asked quietly. Helena's eyes remained fixed on the approaching enemy fleet. "The same thing the Cracks have been doing to human colonies for years. We're going to make them fight themselves." Aboard the Crack's dreadnought Unrelenting Dominance, War Commander Kravak watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The pitiful human vessels that had dared to interfere with the cleansing of the mining colony would soon be reduced to drifting debris. "Status of the advance fleet," he demanded. "No response since their last transmission, Commander," his communications officer reported. The signal was interrupted mid-broadcast. Kravak's 4 eyes narrowed suspiciously, scanned the mining outpost. "What is the status of the human fleet?" "Holding position near the outpost, Commander. They appear to be waiting." A low growl escaped Kravak's throat. Humans were unpredictable and dangerous, even when outmatched. Their tenacity was their only admirable quality. "Order attack groups 1 and 2 to flank the outpost. The remainder of the fleet will advance directly. No survivors." The communications officer relayed the commands, but then frowned at his console. "Commander, I'm receiving unusual feedback on our secure channels. There appears to be some form of interference." Before Kravak could respond, the tactical display suddenly flickered. The positioning of his fleet shifted, vessels appearing to move erratically. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Sir, Attack Group 1 is reporting they're under fire from Attack Group 2. The tactical officer exclaimed. "Impossible," Kravak roared. "Establish visual confirmation immediately." The main view screen activated, showing the chaos unfolding ahead. 2 of his cruisers were indeed exchanging fire, their weapons blazing against each other's shields. "All vessels cease fire immediately," Kravak ordered. The communications officer frantically relayed the command, but the situation only deteriorated further. More ships began firing on each other, responding to phantom threats and contradictory orders. "Our communication system has been compromised," the officer finally realized. "We're receiving conflicting tactical data." Kravak slammed his fist against his command chair. "Switch to secondary communications protocols. All vessels are to hold position and await direct visual signals." But it was too late. In the confusion, the human fleet had launched its attack. "They've taken the bait," Helena announced as the Crack's fleet fell into disarray. "All ships, execute attack pattern Sigma. Target their command and control systems first." The 30 remaining vessels of the Arcturus Preservation Fleet accelerated toward the confused enemy, moving in perfect formation through the gravitational distortions created by their gravity lens devices. What had once been outdated cruisers and destroyers now moved with the precision and coordination of a surgical strike force. "Group Alpha, focus on the dreadnought," Helena ordered. "Groups Beta and Gamma, neutralize their supporting vessels. Remember, we don't need to destroy them, just cripple their ability to fight effectively." The battle unfolded with surprising speed. The Crack's vessels, still struggling to determine which threats were real and which were fabricated by the compromised communications system, failed to mount a coordinated defense. Several ships continued firing on their allies, convinced they had been infiltrated by human forces. "Their dreadnought is activating its main weapons array," Jackson reported. Helena nodded grimly. "Deploy gravity mines." Small devices launched from the human vessels, spreading throughout the battlefield before activating. Each created a powerful gravitational distortion, disrupting the targeting systems of the Crack's weapons and pulling their projectiles off course. The massive energy beam from the dreadnought's main cannon fired, but instead of striking its intended target, it curved sharply, grazing one of its own escort vessels. The Crack's cruiser's shields collapsed under the friendly fire, leaving it vulnerable. "Now," Helena commanded. 3 of her ships converged on the damaged cruiser, their weapons precisely targeting its propulsion and weapon systems. Within moments, the vessel was adrift, unable to continue fighting. One by one, the Crack's vessels suffered similar fates. The human fleet moved like ghosts through the battlefield, appearing where least expected and striking with surgical precision, before disappearing again into the gravitational chaos. "Admiral," Rivera called out, "the dreadnought is attempting to retreat. They're charging their FTL drive." "Intercept course," Helena ordered. "All available ships, concentrate fire on their drive systems." The Relentless led the assault, diving toward the massive Crack's vessel with reckless speed. The dreadnought's defensive batteries tracked the approaching human ships, but the gravitational distortions made targeting nearly impossible. "Weapons range in 5 seconds, Jackson announced. Helena stood from her command chair. "All ships, fire at will." The combined firepower of 12 human vessels struck the dreadnought's engines simultaneously. Explosions blossomed across its stern as critical systems failed catastrophically. The mighty vessel shuddered, its lights flickering as emergency systems engage. "Their FTL drive is offline," Jackson reported. "They're running on auxiliary power." Helena allowed herself a small smile. "Open a channel." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the Crack's dreadnought. War Commander Kravak stood amid the chaos, his 4 eyes burning with hatred as he recognized the human admiral. "This is Admiral Helena Reyes of the United Space Command," she stated calmly. "Your fleet is disabled, your communications compromised. You have 2 options. Surrender now and be allowed to retreat once your weapons are offline, or continue fighting and be destroyed completely. You have 1 minute to decide." Kravak's upper mandibles clicked in fury. "You think this victory means anything, human? This was merely a scouting force. The full might of the Dominion will descend upon your worlds and burn them to ash." "Perhaps," Helena acknowledged. "But not today, and not with your fleet. Your minute starts now." She cut the transmission and turned to her bridge crew. "Status of our forces. 4 ships heavily damaged, 3 with moderate damage," Jackson replied. "The Constellation was lost with all hands." Helena closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of those losses. When she opened them again, her resolve had only strengthened. Prepare boarding parties for any vessel that surrenders. I want their technology stripped and analyzed before they're allowed to limp home. And if they don't surrender? Chen asked. Helena's expression hardened. Then we finish what they started. In the end, survival instinct won out over pride. Kravac surrendered his fleet, though his transmission was filled with promises of retribution. Helena didn't doubt the sincerity of his threats, but that was a problem for another day. For now, they had achieved the impossible. The outdated ships of the Arcturus Preservation Fleet had defeated a superior Krax force. As the human vessels secured their prisoners and began recovery operations, Helena received an incoming transmission from Earth Command. She braced herself for the inevitable reprimand as Fleet Admiral Donovan's stern face appeared on screen. "Admiral Reyes," he began, his expression unreadable. "Reports of your engagement with Krax forces have reached Central Command." "Sir, I take full responsibility for—" "Save it, Helena," Donovan interrupted. "The mining outpost has been broadcasting footage of the entire battle. Half the human colonies have already seen what your museum pieces accomplished today." Helena blinked in surprise. "Sir, you disobeyed direct orders," Donovan continued, "risked irreplaceable historical vessels, and engaged a superior enemy force without authorization." "Yes, sir." A small smile finally cracked the fleet admiral's professional demeanor. "And in doing so, you've given humanity its first decisive victory against the Krax Dominion. The Senate Defense Committee is already calling for a full report on your modifications to those vessels. The Arcturus Preservation Fleet, now the core of humanity's expanding naval forces, stood as a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability. What others had called useless had become the most feared fleet in the galaxy, and Helena Reyes, once relegated to obscurity, now stood at the forefront of a new era in interstellar relations. Not bad, she thought, for a collection of museum pieces and their castaway crew.